In our modern world, many people search for solutions in the outside world. They look to others for validation. They wait for opportunities to appear. They blame circumstances when things don't go their way. But the Shaolin path teaches something very different. All power, all clarity, all peace begins within. Let us explore this ancient wisdom through 4 teachings. Dear friends, when you wake up in the morning, before the world has a chance to touch you, before the notifications flood in, before you hear the noise of everyone else's expectations, you are closest to your true self. In that still moment, there is something quiet inside you that whispers the truth. But most people never stay long enough to hear it, because the modern world constantly pulls your attention outward. You are trained to chase, compare, consume, react. But the deeper you go down that road, the further you move away from your center, and the further you are from yourself, the more everything feels like it's out of control. Many people believe that the solution to their problems lies outside them. They believe that if they just meet the right person, earn more money, change their job, or move to another place, life will finally feel balanced. But that belief is an illusion. If the root is unstable, the tree cannot stand strong, regardless of how many branches it grows. This is why so many people feel like they are working harder than ever, yet nothing is falling into place. Because effort without direction is just movement. And direction does not come from the outside. It comes from within. The root of all transformation is inner work. When your thoughts are clear, your actions become effective. When your energy is pure, your relationships become meaningful. When your presence is grounded, your life begins to reflect that stability. You do not need to control the world, you only need to master yourself. But this is the path most avoid, because it is harder to look inward than to point fingers. It is easier to complain about what others are doing than to ask what energy you are bringing into every situation. Every experience you attract reflects your internal state. If your mind is restless, you will attract chaos. If your heart is closed, you will attract coldness. But when your inner world is calm and open, you will notice something strange happen. Life stops resisting you. People treat you differently. Opportunities appear when you are no longer desperate for them. This is not magic, this is alignment. And alignment is only possible when you stop running from yourself. When you begin to focus on yourself with full sincerity, the first thing you will face is discomfort. You will start to see your habits, your reactions, your wounds. Most people stop here. They turn back to distraction. But those who stay, who breathe through the discomfort and remain still in it, they begin to transform. Because awareness is the first step toward mastery. You cannot change what you are not aware of. And you cannot grow if you are not willing to face what is holding you back. True strength is not loud, it is quiet and grounded. When you focus on yourself, you stop needing to prove your worth. You stop needing to explain yourself. You stop needing to chase love, success, validation, because you realize you are the source. This is what monks have always known. That everything you are seeking is not found in the noise, it is found in the silence between two thoughts. It is found in the breath, in the discipline, in the stillness. When you give your energy to everything around you without tending to your own center, you will always feel depleted. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give peace when you are filled with tension. You cannot create beauty when you are surrounded by clutter. So the first step is to turn inward and ask what needs to be healed, what needs to be let go, what habits no longer serve you. This is not selfish, this is necessary, because when you are whole, everything you touch becomes a reflection of that wholeness. Your life is not a product of chance. It is a mirror of your vibration. And your vibration is shaped by what you give attention to. If you wake up and immediately fill your mind with the noise of the world, you are setting yourself up for a day of reaction. But if you wake up and spend even a few moments in silence, if you breathe with awareness, if you set an intention to remain present, you begin to reclaim your power. Focus is a muscle. And, like any muscle, it must be trained. Every time you return your attention to yourself, you are strengthening that muscle. And over time, the pull of distraction weakens. The world may still be chaotic, but you are not. People often ask how to make things fall into place. They ask how to attract better relationships, how to find their purpose, how to stop feeling lost. But the answer is simple, and it never changes. Focus on yourself, not in a shallow way, not with ego, but with full honesty. Study your patterns, watch your thoughts, observe how you react under pressure, and slowly you will begin to see the areas where your energy is leaking. You will notice the habits that drain you. You will recognize the beliefs that limit you. And when you do, you can choose differently, not because someone told you to, but because you see clearly. When you begin to live from this place of clarity, things that used to feel heavy begin to fall away. You no longer force conversations that don't nourish you. You stop explaining yourself to people who misunderstand you. You stop begging life to give you what you now realize you can give yourself: peace, presence, purpose. None of this comes overnight. It takes discipline, it takes courage to be alone with yourself and still choose to stay, but the reward is a life that feels true, and in that truth everything begins to align. Not because you chased it, but because you became it. Return to yourself again and again until there is nowhere else to go, because everything you seek is already waiting for you within. Discipline is often misunderstood because many see it as something rigid, something harsh, something that takes away freedom. But that view is shallow and rooted in comfort and resistance. The kind of discipline spoken about in the Shaolin tradition is not about control for the sake of control. It is about alignment. It is about becoming strong enough to carry peace into a chaotic world. It is about creating inner order so that outer life flows without constant struggle. When you focus on yourself and begin to strip away the noise, you'll find a truth that is both challenging and liberating. Your mind is wild by default. Your body seeks comfort by default. Your emotions shift like the wind, and unless you are disciplined, all of these things will pull you in different directions. Every day, you will wake up with potential, but by the end of the day, feel like you've accomplished nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you are unfocused. True discipline is the structure that gives your energy purpose. It is the daily choice to direct your mind where you want it to go, rather than letting it wander into doubt, fear, or distraction. It is rising at the time you said you would, even when the bed feels warm. It is keeping your word to yourself even when no one else will ever know. It is showing up for your goals, your growth, your practice again and again until it becomes who you are. Without discipline, you become a servant to your moods. You start something only to quit when it gets hard. You seek motivation only to find it disappears the moment things become uncomfortable. But when you are disciplined, you move without needing to feel like it. You understand that the feeling comes after the action, not before. And this changes everything, because now your progress is no longer dependent on chance. Discipline is a form of love. It is the willingness to sacrifice temporary pleasure for something more permanent, more meaningful. When you choose to delay comfort, when you choose to put in the work, when you choose to stay focused when others are distracted, you are telling yourself that your future matters. You are saying, I am worthy of a better life, and I am willing to earn it. This is where most people get stuck. They want change, but not the discomfort. They want results, but not the repetition. They want strength, but not the struggle. And yet all of these things are born from discipline, from showing up when it's hard, from repeating the basics when they feel boring, from standing tall when every part of you wants to give up. The body must be trained just like the mind. A soft body leads to a weak will, and a weak will leads to a scattered life. This is why Shaolin monks train daily, not for the sake of vanity or performance, but because they understand that every strike, every movement, every repetition is a reminder to the self that discipline is the path to freedom. Freedom does not come from doing whatever you want whenever you want it. It comes from having control over your impulses, over your emotions, over your time. It comes from knowing that you are not easily swayed, that you can be trusted with responsibility, that you can hold your center even when life throws you into chaos. When you focus on yourself and embrace discipline, you start to see a change, not just in your routine, but in your confidence, your clarity, your relationships. People begin to respect you, not for what you say, but for the way you carry yourself. There is something magnetic about someone who does what they say, someone who follows through, someone who lives by principles. You begin to walk with presence, you speak less and observe more. You no longer chase attention because you realize your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. This level of self-respect is only possible when discipline is your foundation. Without it, you will keep betraying yourself in small ways every day, skipping your practice, lying to yourself about why you didn't try, blaming circumstances for your lack of growth. But when you are disciplined, those small betrayals disappear. They are replaced by pride, not the loud kind, but the quiet one that comes from knowing you did what needed to be done when no one was watching. That pride builds momentum, and momentum builds mastery, and mastery leads to peace. Because when you are disciplined, you stop fighting against yourself. You no longer waste time on guilt, regret, or excuses. Your path becomes clear, and when your path is clear, you walk it with strength, not because it's easy, but because you have made peace with the challenge. People often say they want their life to fall into place, but they are unwilling to create the structure that allows that to happen. They wait for motivation, they wait for timing, they wait for someone to push them forward. But the Shaolin way teaches that no one is coming to save you. You must become the one who saves yourself. And that begins with discipline. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to know everything. You only need to start with one choice, one decision. Repeat it over and over until it becomes your way of life. Wake up at the time you promise. Train your body, breathe with intention, eat with awareness, speak with honesty, rest with purpose, live with focus, and let that be enough. Discipline is not a punishment. It is a reminder that your future is in your hands, that your peace is built not found, and that the life you want is on the other side of the habits you are avoiding. Everything begins to shift when you stop giving power to distraction and start giving your full energy to what matters. So focus on yourself, not in comparison, not in arrogance, but in commitment. Choose to be the one who shows up, the one who does the work, the one who keeps going, and you will notice something powerful begin to unfold. Without forcing, without begging, without trying to control the outcome, everything begins to fall into place. The outside world starts to match the inner world, because now the inner world is disciplined, steady, and ready. Most people live surrounded by noise, and they are so used to it that silence feels uncomfortable. They fill every empty space with sound, with distraction, with movement, not realizing that this constant stimulation is keeping them away from their true power. The world moves fast, and people believe that if they are not constantly doing something, they are falling behind. But this belief is the very thing that keeps them stuck. In the Shaolin path, we are taught that clarity does not come from doing more, it comes from doing less. It comes from stopping. It comes from being still, not just on the outside, but on the inside. When you learn to stop and become still, you begin to notice things that were always there, but hidden in the noise. You start to feel your breath. You hear your thoughts. You sense the tension in your body. You see your emotions as they rise and fall like waves. Stillness reveals what chaos conceals. The problems in your life are often not as complicated as they seem, but you cannot see the simple truth because your mind is too busy racing from one thing to another. You are too occupied reacting to everything around you to ever ask yourself what is really happening inside you. And this is why most people repeat the same patterns again and again. They are trapped in loops they don't even realize they are in. When you begin to focus on yourself and commit to stillness, you start to break those patterns, not because someone told you to, not because you followed a rule, but because you see clearly. You notice how certain thoughts always appear when you feel uncertain. You see how some habits come from a place of fear, not strength. You realize how often you speak without listening, how often you move without purpose, and how often you chase things that do not matter. But stillness is not easy, especially at first. It will feel strange. It will feel uncomfortable. You might sit in silence and feel your mind scream at you to do something, to check your phone, to move, to eat, to scroll, to escape. But if you can sit through that noise without reacting, if you can breathe and stay with yourself long enough, something beautiful happens. The mind begins to quiet, the body begins to relax, and the chaos begins to settle. This is when you begin to meet yourself without distraction, without excuses, without roles, and without masks. You meet the part of you that is not defined by your job, your status, your relationships, or your past. You meet the awareness that is always watching, always waiting, always guiding, but rarely heard. This is not philosophy, this is not a belief, this is experience, and experience changes you. When you become still and begin to observe yourself, you also start to see others more clearly. You listen more deeply, you speak more intentionally, you react less and respond more. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because you are rooted in something deeper. You are not moved by every opinion, you are not triggered by every challenge because your foundation is strong. Stillness gives you the space to respond from wisdom, not emotion. It gives you time to feel before you act, to think before you speak, to reflect before you judge. And this space is where your power lives, not in control, not in speed, but in presence. Because when you are truly present, you are aligned. And when you are aligned, life begins to move with you, not against you. Most people are constantly pushing, trying to force outcomes, trying to fix everything around them, hoping that if they can just get things right out there, they will finally feel peace inside. But it does not work that way. The outer world cannot give you something that your inner world has not created first. Peace comes first, stillness comes first, clarity comes first, and from that place, action becomes powerful. This is why a single step taken from stillness can have more impact than 100 taken in chaos. When your mind is clear, your energy is focused, and when your energy is focused, your life becomes effective. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You stop leaking energy through conflict and confusion. You start to live simply and intentionally. In a world that rewards speed and distraction, choosing stillness is an act of rebellion. It is the quiet decision to value depth over noise, to choose clarity over confusion, to live from the inside out rather than from the outside in. And though this path is not always easy, it is always worth it. Stillness also allows you to heal because it gives space for emotions to rise, for pain to be felt, for memories to be processed, for truth to emerge without judgment. When you are constantly moving, you avoid these things, but when you stop, you allow your body to speak, you allow your heart to open, and you allow your mind to rest. And this is when real transformation happens, not from adding more, but from releasing what is no longer needed. As you focus on yourself and practice stillness daily, you begin to notice a shift in your experience. You feel more grounded, you become more patient. You are no longer pulled in 1,000 directions by fear or urgency. You act with calm, you speak with purpose, you live with awareness. And those around you begin to feel that even if they don't understand it, they sense your peace, they respect your presence, they are drawn to your energy because it is rare. Stillness does not mean doing nothing, it means doing everything with full awareness. It means walking without rushing, eating without distraction, speaking without noise, and living without resistance. It is not about removing yourself from life. It is about engaging with life fully from a place of alignment. And when this becomes your way of being, everything starts to fall into place. Not because the world changed, but because you did not. Because you chased stillness, but because you became still. Not because you tried to escape the chaos, but because you stopped feeding it. Learn to be still, not for a moment, but as a way of life. Because when you master your stillness, you master your presence. And when you master your presence, you master your path. When you walk the path of focusing on yourself and begin to practice discipline and stillness, something subtle begins to happen without effort and without chasing. Your energy shifts. The people you attract, the situations that arise, the way life responds to you begins to change, not because you pushed harder, but because you pulled inward. Your inner world becomes stable, and because of that, the outer world starts to reflect it. This is not magic, it is alignment. Most people spend their lives trying to fix the outside. They try to control people, circumstances, and events, hoping that if they can arrange everything just right, then finally they will feel peace or happiness or love. But this way of living is exhausting, because the outside is always changing, always shifting, always moving. You cannot control the wind, but you can control the sail, and that sail is your internal state. When you become centered in yourself, when you stop chasing outcomes, when you stop living through others, you become the anchor in your own life. People who used to drain your energy start to fade away. Situations that used to trigger you begin to lose their power. Distractions that once pulled you in no longer feel important, because now you are focused, and when your focus is pure, your life becomes precise. This is not about isolating yourself or living in some distant cave. This is about learning to be full within yourself, so you are not walking around trying to fill a void with people, with things, with approval. When you are no longer needy, you become powerful, because need is weakness and fullness is strength. You do not chase love, you do not beg for attention, you do not argue to be heard, because you are whole within. When you speak, people listen, not because you speak loud, but because your words come from silence. When you act, people watch, not because you want them to, but because your actions carry intention. This kind of energy cannot be faked, it is cultivated through inner work. It is easy to look at someone who seems at peace and think they are lucky, or they were born that way. But peace is not an accident. Peace is earned. It is earned through the choice to focus on what matters, the decision to let go of what does not, the discipline to stay consistent, and the wisdom to be still. When you no longer give your energy to drama, to noise, to chaos, those things stop showing up in your life, not because they disappeared from the world, but because they cannot survive in your space. This is how life begins to fall into place, not through force, but through alignment. You begin to meet people who match your energy, not because you found them, but because you became someone they are drawn to you. You begin to experience more clarity in your path, not because the path changed, but because your vision cleared. You start to attract opportunities not because you hunted them, but because you are now prepared to receive them. The more you focus on your inner work, the less you are moved by the temporary. The emotional waves do not shake you as easily. The opinions of others do not direct your actions. The setbacks do not break your spirit, because you are no longer tied to outcomes. You are committed to growth. And growth is something you control. This is why in the Shaolin way we do not chase, we attract. And we attract by becoming the embodiment of what we seek. If you want peace, be still. If you want love, be love. If you want strength, be disciplined. And life will respond in kind, not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. You must understand that the outside is a mirror, and when the inside becomes stable, the reflection becomes beautiful, not because everything is perfect, but because you see clearly. You are not reacting from fear. You are not moving from desperation. You are living from presence, and presence changes everything. Let people go if they do not resonate with your path. Let things end if they no longer serve your growth. Stop forcing what does not flow, and stop holding on to what keeps you small. This is not giving up. This is creating space, and space is needed for the new to enter. The more you hold on to what no longer belongs, the longer you delay what is meant for you. This is not a theory. This is a way of life, and it must be practiced daily. Not just in meditation or training, but in how you speak, how you think, how you respond, how you move through the world with awareness and with intention. This is not about perfection. This is about presence. And presence cannot be faked. It must be earned. Focus on yourself, not because others do not matter, but because you can only give to others what you have cultivated within. If you are empty, you will offer emptiness. If you are chaotic, you will spread chaos. But if you are grounded, you will offer peace. If you are disciplined, you will offer stability. If you are present, you will offer truth. So everything begins to fall into place, not because you fixed the world, but because you fixed your focus. And from that focus came discipline. From discipline came stillness. From stillness came alignment. And from alignment came attraction, the kind that does not depend on force, but flows naturally because it comes from who you have become. Remain on this path, remain consistent, remain patient, and trust that what is meant for you will never need to be chased. And what must leave you was never meant to stay. You are not here to control life. You are here to align with it. And that alignment begins within. All things fall into place when you rise within. There is a saying, do not chase butterflies. Mend your garden and they will come. Focus on yourself, not in selfishness but in discipline, not in isolation but in awareness. And you will see, when your internal world is in order, the external world begins to reflect it. This is the way of the Shaolin monk, and this is the way to peace.